but yet somehow crypto is the evil thing and must be destroyed. It's sad. It really is. And so there's a lot of good and there's a lot of bad. Everything's in the middle. And all this meditation, mindfulness, all these things give you resilience to be able to just focus on the day to day, get things done. 2022 is going to be a really interesting year. It's hard to say if we're going to have as much growth this year, upcoming year, as we did in 2021 as an industry. I mean, it's hard to argue with a $2.5 trillion industry and imagine where that's going to go. I think we're just going to digest as an industry the consequences, for better or worse, of becoming so big so quickly. A lot of education, a lot of tools, a lot of consumer experiences need to be built, and a lot of hard work needs to be done to enable the future that we keep preaching as an industry. A lot of good people have entered the space. Some good people have left, and new people will come in. It's going to be an interesting time. There's probably going to be a lot of regulatory events, especially in the DeFi side. That's like the post ICO mania. 2017, we had ICO mania, and then 2018, 2019, crackdown on those things. So similarly, we had DeFi mania and NFT mania in 2021, and we're probably going to see that regulatory stuff start hitting in 2022, leading into 2023. Probably have resolution of the Ripple case as well. Right now, it looks like they're probably going to win it, Ripple. But who the hell knows? Any given judge. And it's sad the entire industry has to wait with bated breath about that. So lots of ups, lots of downs. Big election coming in November. Currently, the politics are that a red wave will probably hit, which means there's going to be deadlock and gridlock until 2024. And then it's anybody's guess of what's going to happen there. Depends on who runs. And it's too far out to know. But that means that we're not going to get any leadership or clarity likely from Washington. Just more uncertainty, more events, and more doublespeak. More, we're here to help, but we're here to stab you in the back at the same time. So we as an industry just have to work together to kind of get through it. On the other hand, I think the majority of Americans are starting, and for that matter, the world, to wake up to a new way of doing things. We're starting to just move beyond the institutions of the past. They've lost so much legitimacy in the last few years, so much hypocrisy and cynicism and deceit, that people are just saying, we're opting out now. Very few people actually watch CNN or Fox News or any of these other platforms. If you look at the ratings and numbers, they fall every year pretty ubiquitously. Meanwhile, there's a huge uptick in people consuming the dark web, the intellectual dark web, from the Weinsteins to the Rogans to the Friedmans to the Harrises. They're the new wave. And there's an overwhelming amount of alternative news cycles and new alternative news that people are consuming. New philosophies, which is why Jordan Peterson's so popular. It's why this woke stuff is so popular. It's why the singularity stuff and dataism is so popular. That's coming. And so 2022 is just more of that, alongside construction of new worlds. People are getting so tired of the world that we're in, they're actively trying to construct a new one. It's called the metaverse. And so there's enormous progress. I'll be at CES January 5th to 8th, just running around and taking a look at the 2,100 exhibitors there. And a lot of them are VR and AR and AI. And it's going to be exciting to see the latest and greatest technology. But it's all directed towards this idea of something different and something beyond. The altered state economy continues to grow. Everybody's selling something to get you out of where we're at today, in large part because a lot of people aren't happy with where they're at today. And why should they be? There's a lot of beauty in this world and a lot of magic in this world, but there's a lot of things that need to change. And I, for one, I'm getting pretty tired of it, and I think you guys are too. And I'm getting tired of the cynicism. I'm getting tired of people saying, that's just the way it is. Shut up and deal with it. For example, we all just mock the government. Say, oh, well, that's just the way the U.S. government works, or our government works. Accept it. Why? Why? Why do we accept that? Why do we put up with it? Why do we tolerate it? For 2 years now, I've been dealing with these mask mandates. And before you have an immediate propagandized visceral reaction to those mandates, honestly think it through and ask yourself the circumstances and conditions many of these things are embedded within. There's a restaurant here in Longmont. You literally walk 10 feet from the door to your seat, 10 feet, densely packed. So apparently it's safe. We're really promoting public health. Having, as we enter the restaurant, put on something, walk 10 feet, sit down, take it off, and then everybody else sits there. That's public health. You really believe that? You really believe that? What science is that based on? But we just accept it, just where we're at. And compound that with how many other arbitrary things have been said and done, and how much violent speech is used on people if they don't comply, and how many other areas of life this has been pushed into. It's extraordinary to me. And that's being done across everything. Our language and vocabulary, our education system, not just in this particular issue of COVID, but across the board. And people are pretty tired of it, honestly, they really are. And our entire industry is starting to opt out. It's creating parallel economies, parallel way of living, parallel way of doing things, different information sources, different notions of truth and legitimacy, different notions of credentials. Well, everything you can imagine, it's just moving in that particular direction. Because the people who are in charge, they lost the moral mandate to be in charge. So 2022, unfortunately, is going to see more of that division, in my view. More of the tone deafness, more of the lies, more of the deceit. But it's also going to see more progress on the reinvention, in my view, of society. A lot of competing philosophies. Anytime you change the rules, everything is up for grabs. You can go any direction. You can become a theocracy, a plutocracy, a meritocracy. You can become a different form of democracy, like a socialist democracy. You could become a communist state. You can become fascist. Everything is up for grabs. From how we buy stuff, to where the value of our money comes from, to the meaning of life itself. It's all there. I mention these things at time to time in my podcasts and AMAs and other places, and I get accused of being a cult leader. And the people who hate Cardano, they hate it so viscerally, they can't acknowledge that we've made any progress whatsoever. They can't acknowledge that anything materially good has been done or built and achieved. So therefore, only paradoxically, by the way, because of their statements, the profound brilliance and charisma of the founder does the value flow from. But at the same time, he's also incompetent and can't do anything and is the worst human being alive. Can't run any business. So Machiavellian can overtake the whims and wills of millions of people, but yet so incompetent can't run a taco stand. This is where we're at. But why am I called a cult leader? Because I show up every week, usually, and say, hey, this is what I think. This is what I see. This is what's happening around me. This is what I notice in society. I'm not saying anything you guys haven't seen, noticed in society, or felt deep down inside. I see the propaganda, and I see the effects of propaganda on people. Yesterday, my own community, an electrical fire in a field created a massive wildfire, the Marshall Fire. 580 buildings burnt to the ground, from a hotel to a suburban footprint. And I grew up in that area. Grew up in Broomfield, right next to Superior, Louisville area. Used to go there all the time. The very area where that Target burnt and that hotel burnt, there's a Buffalo Wild Wings there I used to eat at. In Old Chicago, right across the street from it, used to eat at. Get the medium meat me Chicago deep dish pizza. Been to some of those houses. Burned down, 580 of them. And there was just so much sadness that flooded me when I saw that. Because I say, my God, 5 days from Christmas, people had just finished celebrating. Their lights are still up. Probably haven't even taken out all the garbage yet, all the gifts. They're just trying to get their family back home, cleaning things and figuring out, okay, what am I going to do in January, getting ready for the new year, deciding if they're going to go to a party or not. And then all of a sudden, the middle of the day, their house is destroyed. They go from, wow, that was an interesting holiday season, to I'm homeless. You can't replace a lot of that with money. You know, if you have some painting that's handed down generation by generation, something from grandma, she's been dead for 20 years. How does an insurance check make any of that come back? So I tweet something. I say, our thoughts and prayers. And you read the tweet, you get 4 or 5 people commenting on politics, saying, well, how come you didn't tweet about the people in California when there was a wildfire there? Yeah, because you're an evil Republican. They say these things because they've been propagandized to a point where every single thing is us versus them. Political. There is nothing anymore that's not political. There is nothing in society that hasn't been touched in some way by this sickness of division and radicalization. And at some point it'll break. It has to, because you just can't go through life angry at everything. Can you imagine that? Every single thing. You're standing in line waiting for your coffee, and then you see something that triggers you politically, and then you're just angry. You get your coffee, and then you go somewhere else, next door, you get into your car, and then you see something else. It makes you so angry. Every minute of every day, angry about something. And you ask, why are you so angry? Where does all the rage come from? Why are you so blindly obedient to a particular set of thoughts and ideologies, and hate another set of ideologies and thoughts so much? And did you come up with that yourself, or did something implant that within you? Either mass media, an indoctrinized education, whatever the hell it is. It's not getting better because people aren't taking that step back and asking that very foundational, fundamental question. That's simple. And from time to time I do. And the only response the critics of our projects can have is, I'm a cult leader for this. Just for asking why. Why do we do that? For example, Silicon Valley has this bizarre mantra of move fast and break things. First to market is always right, regardless if they're wrong. It's weird. I'm sorry. There's a world of difference between a social media application where the consequences of failure are that you don't get your picture in 15 seconds. You have to wait 30. And an application that if it fails, you die. They're both software, but God, they're really different, aren't they? And we're talking about social protocols, financial protocols that will control the future of your financial life. And I'm told that the only way to succeed is to rush the market. Do it half-assed, get a network effect, fix it later. $10.5 this year billion, according to the Block, a report that they published, for losses stolen, embezzled, hacked this year in the DeFi space as a direct result of that move fast and break things mentality. Ask yourself, does that help or hinder our industry? Does that help or hinder adoption? If you're one of the people on the losing side that's just been completely wiped out, you've lost your life savings, do you just wake up and say, boy, I can't wait to tell all my friends and family about cryptocurrencies and how wonderful they are and how they destroyed my entire financial life, but they're going to liberate you. Yeah, it's going to be great. And they say, well, but you have to do this because you have to make as much money as quickly as possible. So let me get this straight. You're selling that crypto is the future. That's why people should buy. But your goal is to be first to market, so your token price goes way up so that you can sell at the top and then run away and leave junk in someone else's hand to a legacy currency that's dying. 20% inflation this year. And you're an adherent to the true philosophy of decentralization and cryptocurrencies. And that's the philosophy we should adopt. Challenge it, right? It makes no sense to me. Slow, methodical, really think through what you're doing and ask yourself, am I okay with the trade-offs and consequences? And Do I fully understand the ramifications, the ethics of the things that we do? Basic, right? Yet that's wrong, according to the Valley. That's why Novogratz has his 20 good men that tell him that Cardano is nothing. That's why VCs don't even actually understand that Cardano has a community. They think it's just me behind a microphone. This somehow, some way, it's just as valuable. But who knows? It's a mystery. It's a mystery box. And that's where we're at in a certain circles. But what gives me hope is the fact that so many aren't there. So many have moved beyond that. You know, I'm right now designing a clinic with my dad and brother, which is, yeah, by the way, if you ever have a chance to work with your father and your brother, your family, and like a real productive project, take it. It's one of the most magical, rewarding experiences you can have. It's so invigorating. You get to create with people that you grew up with. So anyway, we're talking about the future of medicine, how to actually do wellness. And we're going over everything, you know, how to improve the microbiome. We're talking about all the amazing advancements in neural performance, from neural meditation to photobiomodulation, looking at things like neural feedback, hyperbaric therapies. I mean, it's incredible. The Swiss Army knife of stuff. You can sequence the entire human genome for about $1,000. Used to be $3 billion when I was growing up. I'm not that old. $1,000. For the microbiome, there's a company called Viome. They can actually take the genetic samples from a stool sample of all your microbiome and actually give you customized, personalized probiotics. It's just crazy, the kind of stuff that you can accomplish and do at a fairly low cost. They have continuous glucose monitors. You just click it on your arm. It tells you your glucose levels throughout the whole day. Wow. It's amazing putting all these pieces together and asking, what should health and wellness and primary care look like in the 21st century? And how do you put that into a concierge model that also can help the poor? And you can balance those two things. One subsidizes the other. And the economics are great, even though it's lower cost than the way we do things right now in the transactional RVU chasing model in the United States, which is broken as hell. It's great to do that, and it's invigorating to do that, but it makes me sad that a 34-year-old entrepreneur who's not a doctor can work with physicians and in a short period of time, on paper at the very least, come up with a system that probably is an order of magnitude better than the system we have, that is a product of cynicism, and it's a product of nepotism, and it's a product of corruption and divergent political interests that we just all seem to accept, but we complain about, but we never change. That's sad. That's really sad. You know, that has to change. And I've been trying to figure out how to do it. You know, I tell people my philosophy, we build products and services in that direction. And a lot of you have adopted these things and are asking fundamental questions. But as a society as a whole, at some point that has to change. At some point we have to change. We have to be better. You know, a big thing that we've been discussing in the company this year, this upcoming year, is, you know, people have New Year's resolutions. And I have this goal, I have that goal. So I grouped them into 4 categories: health, happiness, performance, and growth. HHPG. 4 things. Okay. And I really started drilling down into these things. What the hell is health? What the hell is happiness? What the hell is performance? What does growth mean? And it turns out so many people make resolutions, so many people commit to things, so many people think things, but they don't actually ask basic foundational questions of what is that? Like if you go to anybody who meditates, they meditate. And you ask them, what is meditation? What's the definition of meditation? Does anybody know? That's an interesting question. Buddhism, I think, has been around for 2,600 years. And I ruminated on this definition. I looked around for a good one. I like John Kabat-Zinn's definition. You know, it's a long one. It says, any way in which we engage in systematically regulating our attention and energy, thereby influencing, possibly transforming the quality of our experience in the service of realizing the full range of our humanity and our relationships to others and the world. What the hell does that mean? Take a lifetime to understand it. Interesting. But every one of those categories, health, what is good health? Asking that fundamental foundational question here with the clinic. What does it mean to be healthy? The allopathic side, they come in, they got diabetes and all these chronic conditions. Well, manage it better. Okay, I guess that's health. But maybe you can prevent the underlying root causes before they're a problem so that they never even develop that condition. That's something. Okay. Not so healthy myself. I'm overweight. You guys notice it. Twitter certainly does. I should do something about that. But then moving beyond that, what else? What does it mean to be healthy? And how much should you invest in that? Happiness. That's really a combination of meaning and awareness. Awareness of the world around you and an acceptance of it as it is and letting go, and meaning and actually having a purpose in life. You have those two things, you can endure pretty much anything. You can get through hell. Every doctor has to. They have to go to medical school. They have to go through residency. It's not easy. It's brutal. But they have purpose. They have meaning. That's what guides them through those hard times. Okay. But what does that really mean? And performance. There's a whole field, sports psychology, performance psychology. Thinks about goal setting. Smart method for goal setting. These things. But what the hell does that actually mean? What is performance? And acceptance relate to performance? Is it okay to be number 2, number 3 in some context? You can't be great at everything. Expertise is a tremendously expensive and time-consuming thing. Okay. And growth. Yeah, we all want to do something, I want to learn this new skill. I own a Blackhawk. Maybe I learn to fly it. I have a path to do that if I want to. Take a lot of time, a lot of effort. Is that a noble goal? We look at growth in terms of the company. We say, okay, we want to hit these KPIs and execute on this strategy. We have a view of what needs to be done to get Cardano to the next level. Okay, great. So what do we need to do to make that happen? But then personally, these things. So New Year's resolutions, it's the 31st. All of you are thinking, where am I going to be next year? And to tell you the difference between a collectivistic and individualistic society, how many of your goals, you listening, are connected to how to make your community, this nation, your society, a better place? Versus how many of your goals are connected to you, your family, and your immediate network, the people you know? It's not a criticism. It's just a question. If you think about it, I reflected on that myself, looking at all my goals. I have so many goals for next year. Very goal-directed guy, very growth-directed guy. I want to do this. I want to do that. And I noticed a recurring theme that a lot of it was make the company better. Do this for the family. Do this for the house. Do this for the ranch. Do this. And I said, well, hang on a second here. What about the community as a whole? Now, to be fair, there were some. I bought my ranch nearby the town of Wheatland. It's a small town, 3,500 people. And I said, I have moral obligation if I'm going to live in that area, make community better. So I'm just going to go there and start building businesses and hiring people because the unemployment rate's so damn high in that town. So we want to open up over a period of time 4 restaurants and a taxidermy and processing place, put some hydroponics in, looking at all kinds of different things I could do, create 10 jobs here, 20 jobs there. It's a moral obligation to the town. Okay. Do I check the box then? Or is that the wrong way of thinking about it? It's just something you do every day. Yeah, okay. That's more of a mindfulness approach, loving careness, loving, caring, take care of the people around you. But all this cynicism of the way things are, I think wisdom is that they are this way in part because of us, our consent, our belief, and our actions. You can complain about how dirty a park is, but how many of you take the time to clean up part of it? You can complain about how messy the side of a road is, but how do you take the time, park your car, pull out a trash bag, and just start putting some things in? You say, that's not my job. But how many things in life, if we all just did that a little bit, collectively would change the world? And then we hold people accountable. We say, well, that's their job. But how much did you invest into ensuring that the structures of accountability were set up for success? I failed many times in leadership and as a manager. It's something you learn and you ruminate on as you get older, and you've been a CEO for a while. And I've been a CEO in part or whole for almost 10 years now. The early days, I wasn't so good at it, pretty bad at it. People write books about it. Not really that true, but they still get made into movies. The Infinite Machine is the first. And at least I fare okay in that one. God help me on the other ones. And I often think about, where did I fail as a leader? One of the first things I failed at was asking people to do things and putting people in situations where they didn't have the adequate training and skill sets and foundations in order to do it. I said, well, I hired you. You had this on your resume. You claimed you could do X. But, that's a failure. Just because someone has a degree in X, a skill in this, or an equivalent experience in your mind, do you really know? Did you really take the time? Did you really think about it? If you're going to put lots of stuff on someone, do they have the right time management system? Do they have the right task management system? Do they really understand how to organize all that and to work with you? Do they understand how you communicate? Do they understand when you're just being half serious and you're actually wanting them to do something? Do they get all of those different things? If they don't, did you invest the time to build up that competence before you load them up? We kind of get this. You work at Walmart. You can't just on the first day the person's there to stock the shelves say, here's your pallet. Go sporting goods and toys. Good luck, everybody. You don't hire a truck driver. Say, oh, well, you have a CDL, so you know how to drive one of these things. All right, here you go. Here's the booklet. Good luck. Figure it all out. No, you train people, right? Yeah, but how often do you think in life and take that beyond that one context and say, well, the people who govern us, what training have they gone through? What institutions and structures are in place to help them clean up that park or the sides of those roads? This wildfire that just broke out, could we have done things differently? I don't know. And the people accountable for putting it out, did they do everything right? I have no idea. Did the system fail us, or was this just such a weird act of God we don't know? Who knows? But it's something to think about. And that's going back to the root cause of all the problems that we see. You see, the space we're in is as much political and philosophical as it is economic. It's quite unfortunate that there are tokens floating around that go way up and way down, because they distract people from the core of what our industry is about, and always have and always will. This has nothing to do with getting rich. It has everything to do with the redefinition of wealth, and has everything to do with how wealth should be perceived and used in society in the next 20 or 30 years. And what is the best set of philosophies to make that better than the one that we inherited as people? When you change a system, it's not automatically guaranteed that it's going to be better. People seem to think new is good, old is bad. Sometimes the traditions of the past keep you out of trouble. Sometimes the views of the past keep you out of trouble. And new could be very damaging. If the new people coming in, the new philosophies have no context, no understanding of history, if they don't have something to back them up, they're not built on things from the past, they could be completely wrong. For example, let's say you go to an island and no one there has any knowledge of radiation, except for this wise old man. And he says, don't go into the caves. And the new people say, oh, he's just a superstitious old man. It says bad spirits are there. Well, he was around for the last time people went to the caves and they died. You go in the cave. It's a new idea. The caves are open now and free. Superstition has been removed. You have to think it through. So a lot of new ideas are coming down the pipe about the reimagining and rebuilding of institutions so they have trust and legitimacy. Some cases they're saying you should have more power. Other cases they're saying you shouldn't have any power. We should take it from you. That's the China way. Social credit for all. Trust grandpa. Trust society. Trust Papa State. They know best. You don't. And there's some truth in both sides. If no one takes the time to be wise, if no one takes the time to invest in themselves and they feel a collective duty and responsibility to their fellow man, then they start converging to a society that lacks the basic wisdom, empathy, and capacity to self-govern. Yet the opposite is true if people do. They need to be free because any other existence would be hell. It'd be akin to living on a prison. You see, so these are the choices in 2022 that are coming to us. And they're not easy. Every single belief, every single thing is going to be harshly examined and really deeply deconstructed and torn apart. And change will continue. A lot of social change, a lot of societal change. We're going to have to start being honest as a society. I've been told over the last 2 years that the printing of trillions of dollars of money out of thin air will have no effect on inflation. It's going to be temporary at best. And then when they're finally starting to get honest, they say, well, no economist saw it seeing. I tweeted that. The Economist actually tweeted. I retweeted them with the quote. They tweeted, oh, no economist saw inflation coming. We destroy all our supply chains and we double the money supply. And you honestly are going to say with a straight face you didn't see inflation coming? So let me get this straight. You like smoked every day for 50 years, 7 packs of cigarettes, and you never saw the heart disease and lung cancer coming? Oh my God. Wow. So surprising. It's like, come on, guys. You're going to say that. You're going to publish that with The Economist as your title, with a straight face. When any common sense person can say this is madness. But yet, writers are still writing. Journalists haven't been fired. Mainstream economics is still a thing. Still got tenured professors. Krugman in some bizarre world is still an elite economist, listened to by many people, referenced on many committees. He's got his Nobel Prize. Not right about a lot of stuff, but okay. So that's where we're at. At some point, we'll probably see the Joe Rogan podcast get banned, deplatformed. It's going to happen if this continues. And at some point, we're going to see the criminalization of speech occur as well. At some point, the thought police are going to come. They already are in many respects. And if you violate them, you get deplatformed, at best, thrown into some sort of camp somewhere at worst. Don't think that can happen? Why not? What controls in society prevent that from occurring? We're all too tolerant of being intolerant. We accept that if we don't like the speech, those people should be removed. Why not? You see, and that's the point of immutability and decentralization and these blockchain-based protocols. That's what we strive for. You cannot trust people. You just can't. At some point, every single person in your life, somewhere, somehow, some way, is going to let you down. That's basically the closest definition I can think of to being human, to disappoint someone else at some point, somehow, some way. It's just the way it is. Every law, every regulation, every structure, every institution is in some way fallible and flawed for someone. Now, you can have exceptional institutions that, on average, do pretty well. Look at airplanes. On average, they work pretty good. 99.99999 goes on for a bit percent of the time. You're fine. Don't even worry about it. Don't even think about it. Yet, You can go and Google air crashes, and you can read one after another, after another, after another. You in your lifetime will seldom see another institution field a human endeavor that has as good of a track record of safety and reliability relative to the totality of its engagement than flying. Yet somehow there are failures, and that's a good institution. Keeps getting better every year. So then we look to more fallible institutions, more subjective institutions, and we expect them to be great. No, human beings let people down. The point of the technology we build is to look at the common reoccurring patterns of where people let people down, where people allow their cognitive biases, their political biases, their philosophical and religious biases get in the way of fairness and rationality, and extract them from human judgment, economic concerns, and put them into a structure that cannot lie. It's just going to tell you what it perceives to be true, regardless of the context or the convenience or your feelings. We don't have that in social settings. We have that in science with physics. The laws of physics, laws of thermodynamics, gravity, these things, they just apply regardless if they're good for you or not. It's just something you accept. And it surprises the hell out of people when you bend them even a little bit. It's like a big deal. Nobel Prizes are made when people find some exceptions here and there in the quantum world or wherever have you. And it would be nice to ask the question, what can we replicate from that clarity we gain in the social world for the governments we construct and the rights that we have, these other things? We've tried with constitutions. We've tried with checks and balances and the judiciary, right? The judges, they're supposed to be there, but they always get corrupted in the end, or the perception of their corruption. So that's what we're selling as an industry. You notice that while a token may be necessary to decentralize it, that is a necessary evil in the sense that it is something to bootstrap and get it where it needs to go and to get it into the hands of the many. But that's not the purpose of it, any more so than the purpose of a car is just consuming gasoline. Yes, you need it, but you build a car to get somewhere, to do something, to transport something. And the fuel is the necessary evil in which you utilize to accommodate that, not a means to an end itself. So when we ask what is the point of all of this, it's saying humans are fallible, and thus we need structures and institutions that aren't, that are as close to it as we can get, so that we can then deploy those structures and institutions in ways to make society a little bit better. Because here's the reality of institutions. The more complex life gets, the more sophisticated the institutions need to be to accommodate the complexity. Look at the hospital as the example. In the beginning, you have the witch doctor, the shaman, the cleric, and they rub some stuff on you and give you some maggots and cast a magic spell, and maybe you get better. Who knows? And then finally, we start actually applying some sort of rigor, and we exit the heroic era of medicine, and then we enter the allopathic era, and we use science, and we have treatments and cures and procedures that are based on repeatable fact, and standardize the training and credential people properly, and so forth. So you have the doctor. Are we done? No. We build collections of them together, collections of excellence. And then suddenly you have the hospital. And the hospital is a very complex place. And thus they can do neural surgery there. They can do heart surgery there. They can literally replace your heart with another heart. Imagine the pinnacle of skills, science, art, and safety that have to come together for that standard of care to provide that to you and have a reasonable expectation that it's going to work. They sure as hell did brain surgery in ancient Egypt. You can still see the skulls with the holes in them. And actually, some people survived. But how much faith would you have if there wasn't an institution that had a track record of success for these types of things. And how fragile is that institution? What little has to happen for your trust and your faith in that bastion of complexity and skill to manage those difficult tasks? How many accidents, how many slip-ups, how many infections, how many incidents before you say, oh, look at the airline industry. You see a plane crash and you're literally tomorrow flying. How comfortable would you be getting on the airplane? You could look at all the data and the statistics and these other things and say, oh, wow, well, it's a good industry overall. It's safe overall, but you saw it with your own two eyes. Flaming bodies running out. Right? Faith in institutions is a very fragile thing, but you need them for complexity in life, or else you can't take to the skies and you can't replace a heart. And then you look at a government that's orders of magnitude more complex than any hospital and any airline, any airplane. And very little can destroy your faith in the legitimacy of that government. A single event, you lost an election. That's why it's so incredibly important that we ask ourselves, what do we build our institutions upon? It's so incredibly important that we take the time to carefully analyze why they go wrong and rebuild that. And the people who dare to tell you this get labeled cult leaders. The people who dare to tell you these things get called crazy until they're not. It's crazy to keep doing the wrong thing. It's crazy to keep hurting yourself. It's crazy to keep living in a society where every day we're getting more divided, less trustful, and more angry over everything. From the guy in the bagel line to the crazy mandates that are being put on us, to the deplatforming, it's not making things better. It's making things worse. That's crazy. The people saying we ought to wake up and do things differently, they're the only sane people. And that's our industry in a nutshell. They're basically saying, wake up, do things differently, think about the world differently, talk differently, act differently. Now, there's a lot of arrogance and audacity in saying you can change the world. So the first requirement is changing ourselves before you can change others. Just like, you see those little things on the little aircraft manuals, and they say, hey, if those oxygen masks come down, put your mask on before you help other people. Why? Because if you do it the other way around, you might not be alive to tell the tale. You have to help yourself before you can help others, or else you're no good to anybody. So you go back to those basic things: happiness and health, your performance in life, how you're going to grow. And you have to ask questions like, what does this mean? Why? You have to be like a young child again, the beginner's mind, like a 4-year-old. Why does this happen? What color is a shadow? Basic stuff that a little kid will ask. And you start thinking, you're like, that's a good question. I don't know. You see, I don't know. These are the musings for the next year. It's going to be a fun one. CES and all these other things, that's hope. Shows you where you could go. And there's going to be a lot of changes with the cryptocurrency space, a lot of maturing, a lot of adulting, some setbacks here and there. Cardano's in incredible hands. We have a beautiful roadmap as a collective whole, and there's going to be a nice gradual transition to a permanent open source project, kind of like Linux enjoys. And we'll still be around. We'll still be building. Probably have more people working on it at the end of the year than we do at the beginning. The difference is that instead of us plus 12 companies working in a somewhat hierarchical way, it'll be a lot more of you. These open source projects, these dApps on Cardano, they should have their code open at some point. I understand if they want to keep it closed for a little while, but they should have it open. And they should also commit to putting at least one of their developers to contributing to the Cardano protocol, because then that means something different. When you say there's 127 dApps on Cardano, and it'll grow, it'll be 500, it'll be 1,000, because the system will get easier to use. That's saying there's a lot of use and utility. Great. But if you say there's 500 to 1,000, and each and every one of them has a social expectation of contributing a developer to the system, imagine how much further along we'd be. And it actually is a very small resource commitment, all things considered, for them. So that's something we should demand. That's something we should think about. Little stuff like that. These are the kinds of conversations. The micro summits, they're going to start with the DEXs and all these other DeFi applications. There's already a beautiful feedback loop with Plutus. There's a lot of great stuff happening in the sidechains department. Some people have front run what we're doing, and that's phenomenal. Very proud of DC Spark. They're doing great work. We're really happy, actually. But yet, it only ever means something if we accomplish something great in the long term. And we already have, in that we built an amazing community together, millions of people, and that's only going to continue to grow. However, for me, my personal goal, I'll keep saying it. I said in the TED Talk 2014, this is what you're supposed to use this stuff for. Finally, in 2022, all these years later, all the ups and downs, dealing with Ethereum and all that garbage, and all the winters and summers and all this other stuff. Finally, in 2022, we get to do that. That's going to be the moment of my life. That's going to be the high point. I don't think you can ever really top that. It's going to be fun and exciting and bittersweet. It reminds me of when Andrew Wiles solved Fermat's last theorem. And he said he took a moment and it was so indescribably beautiful, and then he was cowed in sadness because that was a problem that was with him his whole life, and now it's gone. It's solved. So it's going to be a lot like that, in my view. Because once that's there and that model's proven, everybody will pretend like they knew it was axiomatic, it was foregone, and that type of model is just the way things ought to be. Copy it, imitate it, and pretend like they invented it. But it'll get done. Competition will come. And it's going to change the world. It's going to bring 3 billion people who are excluded, who don't have economic identity, into the ecosystem. Why? Because people are humanitarians? No. These people want to make profit, and they say, I make this much here, I make this much here, I'm going to do this. You don't get Burger Kings and McDonald's and Wendy's on the side of the street because people said, boy, I can't wait to feed the homeless. You get them there because somebody did the math and figured out that if they put them there, they're going to make a good business out of it. So if you can demonstrate to the world at scale an end-to-end circle where by doing direct foreign investment and onboarding people in the developing world is more profitable than onboarding people in the developed world, thousands of entrepreneurs will seek that out and do it, which means you've attracted an army to go and do it. That's how you change everything. That's why we have so many cell phone apps. That's why we have so many NFTs. Nobody just woke up and said, boy, these NFT things, they're real exciting, when there wasn't a financial signal for it. I remember I was at the Wyoming Hackathon years ago, and there was a kid from Consensus, and he had a seminar on NFTs. And this was years before anybody cared about them. So kudos to Consensus for the prescience. Nobody attended. There was like 5 people in the audience about NFTs. Like, what is this non-fungible tokens bull hooey about? Now at CES, there's like 3 NFT things there at CES, the Consumer Electronics Expo. It's like everything, $4 billion a month. Everybody's got an NFT fund. Why? Because people are getting rich. And then they're all flooding on in. And now if it's going to sustain itself, in my view, it'll move into the metaverse. Okay. But we'll see. It's about that economic signal, that commercial signal. So that's been the white whale. That's been the thing I've been chasing for almost a decade of my life. And next year, we have a damn good shot of getting it done. And all the pieces are there. The peer-to-peer, JED, the stable coin, all the relationships, 4 years running around Africa to get them right. Need an identity system for credit scoring. We have DIDs. We have Prism. Need a platform, a settlement system. You need smart contracts. Goggen's out. Cardano's at scale. You need a large community to draw from to do that circle. You're here. That's a good moment. I'm really looking forward to that. It's going to be something magical for the entire world and something deeply personal. But I said it in the Cardano Summit back in September. Cardano is now becoming significantly more defined by the things you do, the community, rather than what I did as one of the founders of it. It's moved beyond the founders. And we're putting that exclamation point on the project next year. It will become so incredibly diverse and nuanced that I'll be a footnote. And that's a dream to be one, to fade into the back. Great companies, great projects, great protocols. You start to forget your founders. You start to forget the history. If you walk along the street side and you interview a person at random and say, do you use the internet? The vast majority of people would say yes. And you ask them, who created the internet? I'd think for a bit. Some people say Bill Gates. And some people say Bezos, Steve Jobs, I don't know, Zuckerberg. And some people say, oh, it's Tim Berners-Lee. And every now and then somebody say, well, it was Vince Cerf and Bob Kahn, were the first guys to do the networking side, and that was ARPANET. And you say, wait, hang on a second. Who are you? Oh, I'm a professor of networking at this university. Okay. Not many people actually know, right? And the further away you get from the foundation of something, the more is forgotten. Who were the first settlers in the state of Massachusetts? What about the state of Wyoming? What about the state of Montana? Do you remember who the first governor of Colorado Territory was? Well, some people do. Talk to the Coloradans, most forget about it. Who was the 9th vice president of the United States? See how easy it is, no matter how connected and dialed in you are? And pick your own country as an example. How much history is lost and forgotten. We're a young country, United States. Look at the history of England. Holy hell, throw a stone, you'll hit a skeleton. Or a closet with skeletons. So it's going to be an interesting year, and it's one that you're going to define, and I can't wait to see it. Thus, I make an announcement. And the announcement is that I bought this office building that I'm in, and, I do this AMA, and I have a lot of fun with this AMA. And I've gradually been upgrading the equipment. Like I have this Shure mic and this nice Gator arm. And of course, Logan the Lobster is on it. Always will be. Getting a better camera. Logitech Brio is great, but come on, we can do better. I am going to refurbish one of the downstairs suites and turn it into a beautiful studio. Kind of like the Joe Rogan podcast has their nice studio. Better cameras, better audio equipment, more professional production. And instead of being just a solo thing where I opine and occasionally answer your questions, we're going to structure it a little bit better. So you guys saw some pilots that we did this year, like the people of IOG, where I interviewed our employees, people we work with, we contract with, and we have great conversation, like with Mihaela and with Donal and Dan Friedman. It'd be a lot of fun to actually bring in more people from IOG and also people from the community and other interesting people that we work with from time to time, like Stephen Wolfram and so forth. So all these Cardano projects, as they grow and evolve, once we have that studio constructed, we can bring them on in. You guys can come on in and we'll do a nice little interview and a nice little podcast. We'll also have a far more structured way for people to ask questions. And we'll try to make it more collaborative. It'd be a lot of fun, for example, to set up a stack exchange or something like that. So if you have an AMA question, you just ask it there. And there's a history of these things. And if I answer them, put a link to the answer there, the community can opine and add in as well. So I'm going to invest a little bit into that because we're really at that point where it's about time to have a broader dialogue. The other thing is that I'm deeply frustrated by the lack of social media presence. We have it and we don't have it. It's very fragmented. So as I mentioned, we're hiring 7 marketers, majority of which will be connected to the social media side to help propagate why Cardano is so amazing. From the science to the engineering, to the use and utility, to the community that's behind it. Each of those domains, there's a story there that's magical and incredible. And I'm getting real fucking tired of it being told by podcasters, YouTubers, VC people, and our competitors. It needs to be told with a fact-based, evidence-based conversation right from the source so people can see with their own eyes the truth. And that's a priority. It's something that's going to get done. You know, we're doing a great job writing the code. It's so amazing. People say just a wallet, nothing's been accomplished. We're number one for fucking GitHub commits. And they say, well, those don't count. Okay. Well, then tell me what does. If you're such an expert that you're going to opine on the quality of our commits, then tell us which ones are wrong and which ones don't mean anything. And tell us what parts of the roadmap we're failing at dramatically so. Every step of the way, it's like Dumb and Dumber with the most annoying noise in the world just screeching into our ears of these critics. And, you know, for the most part, we ignore them, but it does cause harm to the project and adoption of the project. It's hard sometimes when you deal with clients or you deal with people and they have radically different notions of what you actually have accomplished. Oh, well, we can't build on Cardano. It doesn't support this. Well, it does. Oh, yeah, but I can't issue an asset. Well, there's 2 million issued. Really? Yeah, so that's a problem. And it has to be addressed head on. You don't complain about it. You just solve the fucking problem. And so I can do my part, and you guys are going to do your part. Nothing will change the narrative and dialogue more than success. And nothing will demonstrate success more than having dozens of very nice, well-constructed, audited, and certified dApps running on Cardano smoothly with a great user experience. We have a foundation then to build from. And that's coming, not abstractly, but it's being built today, right now, right here by those 127 projects. And quarter one, quarter two, as they roll out, and quarter three, as they roll out, they'll demonstrate that. Okay, but we still need to propagate it. So we need to really upgrade our game in terms of how we communicate, how we broadcast, and our ability to create virality in the things that we do. The other thing is we have to communicate the philosophy. It is expensive to do the things the way we've done, but worth it. And we need to make it clear that people understand what they were paying for in terms of time and effort. Why does certification matter? And yes, it's absolutely true that there are dApps in the Ethereum ecosystem that get certified. Absolutely true. But you can't with a straight face tell me that that's the status quo if $10.5 billion is lost, stolen, or wasted in 1 year. 10% of the entire totality of the industry. You can't. You cannot. That's like saying, oh, of course, well, we build planes sometimes with auditing. Well, if 10% of your planes crash, you're a fucking terrible engineer. This is not an abstraction. That's other people's money. Some cases, people's life savings. Have some respect for that. So yes, we have to showcase that. We have to showcase the protocol design, which evolves now more rapidly than anyone else in the industry. And we will, together. So you'll do your part. You're going to create your own podcast. You already have your own shows, your own social media. Create your own marketing. Each and every one of those projects is going to be broadcasting, and we'll lift a lot. Foundation's lifting a lot. Emergo's certainly lifting a lot. Everybody's telling their part of the journey. Lots of companies floating around now. And that open source project, one of the pillars of it will be not just development, but will be marketing. And it'll make sure that there's proper accountable people every day who wake up and get that done. And that's the point of Catalyst, is to ensure that there's perpetual resources to get that done long after all of us are dead and buried. It's just the way to do things. It's the model to do things. So I'm very excited about that. You know, there's a lot of personal stuff. There's some things that make me sad as they make you sad. And, you know, it is what it is. But all things considered, I'm optimistic. Carefully, but still optimistic. I think 2022, while it probably will be one of the most challenging years, will be one of the best years in the history of our project, my company, myself, and all of you. As long as we never forget, we have to work together and we have to work on ourselves. And as long as we don't allow ourselves to succumb to bitterness, division, and cynicism, I'll keep saying it. And maybe one day, somehow, some way, people will start believing it. I truly wish I had the charisma of a cult leader at times, because there are certain things that ought to be propagated, ought to be said, ought to be indoctrinated in people. And one of those fundamental things is empathy and compassion. And one of those fundamental things is our capability to work together for a greater cause. We really have to. There's no reason for us to have dirty roads, dirty parks. There's no reason for us to have failed institutions. None. Zero. There's no reason for us to be bathed in propaganda and accept it as if it was true. And there's no reason for us to hate each other and be so angry with people we've never met because we were told by other people we've never met to hate those people and be angry at those people. Honestly, there's just none. And if we can achieve anything, just changing that in ourselves before anything else will make our lives better. So it's going to be a great new year if we make it a great new year. This was a tough one. Betty White died. We couldn't even keep her until next year. That's tough. That's sad. Bishop Tutu died. A lot of good people died who didn't need to, or should have lasted a little bit longer so they could at least go out in a positive year. It's been 2 long years of lots of stuff that really shouldn't have happened and have caused a lot of pain and heartache for people and a lot of division. So we can either choose to make it 3 long years, or we can choose to say those were the 2 bad ones and we woke up and changed ourselves and thus changed everything else. We have the tools, we have the capabilities, we have each other. We have no one to blame but ourselves if it doesn't happen. So I wish all of you a happy new year. I hope all of you think a lot about what your goals are in terms of happiness and health, your ability to perform, and how you want to grow. I hope all of you find some meaning and purpose, and I hope all of you have a great year. I really, truly do. And I hope we can look back at 2022 with fondness and warmth and say that was the year it all came together, and we're really, really excited about it. As I said, there's going to be a lot of stuff, a lot of challenges. Stuff is going to come up every month, something new. I didn't expect in the middle of winter that a grass fire would be the most destructive wildfire in Colorado from a house perspective. I mean, it's snowing. It's going to be 6 to 8 inches of snow here. You know, how do you conceive that in this kind of a season with almost a foot of snow the following day that people's homes are going to be destroyed? They just happen. You recover from these things through love, compassion, empathy, and community, and you recover through these things with a positive attitude and a belief that tomorrow will be better because we can work to make it better. So every month there's going to be something like that for someone somewhere in this world. Okay. But it doesn't have to define the year. So let's hope that we can create that mindset, preserve that mindset, and get it done. Our best days are ahead of us, friends. Cheers. Hi, this is Charles Hoskinson, broadcasting live from warm, sunny Colorado. Always warm, always sunny, sometimes Colorado. Today is December 31st, 2021. It is the final day of the year. So I will see everybody next year because, well, today's the last day, right? It's been a hell of a year. We released a lot of content the last week, kind of recapping all the progress that's been made with Cardano, my own company, and our affiliated projects and community-based projects. It's pretty amazing, actually, if you take a look at all of it. It's been a pretty exciting time. I've gone everywhere this year, from El Salvador to Africa. We've had fun. It's been challenging, learned a lot. First year I've ever stayed silent for an entire week in a meditation retreat. And obviously, we achieved a lot of things. It seems like we live in a parallel reality at times where there's what we actually experience and do, and then there's what people write about and say. And sometimes those overlap, and other times they don't. But, it doesn't actually matter because we have this medium, the AMA. We have this medium, YouTube. We have the medium of social media. Stuff always floats through, and people know what's going on. 120,000 people attended the Cardano Summit, and people got to see the best.